He was the king of custom hot rods, bold designs, billet wheels, and a booming TV presence on American Hot Rod. But when Boyd Coddington died suddenly in 2008, something strange happened. His legendary garage, once buzzing with machines and ambition, fell silent. For years, it remained untouched, until someone finally opened the doors. What they found inside wasn't just a collection of half-finished cars. It was something far more unsettling. Unreleased designs, secret letters, and evidence of betrayal and financial ruin were buried beneath the dust. This isn't just the story of a car builder. It's a story of fame, downfall, and the haunting mystery of a man who tried to control everything, but couldn't control how it all ended. What really happened inside Boyd's empire? And why did so many secrets stay hidden until now? What they found in Boyd Coddington's garage will truly shock you. Before the TV cameras, before the trophies, and before the controversy, Boyd Coddington was just a small-town machinist with a big dream. Born in 1944 in Rupert, Idaho, Boyd developed a love for hot rods at an early age. His hands were always dirty, tinkering with engines, shaping metal, and dreaming of sleeker, faster machines. After moving to Southern California, then the epicenter of car culture, he took a job as a machinist at Disneyland while moonlighting on custom car builds in his home garage. That humble garage would become the foundation for a revolution in automotive design. In 1977, Boyd officially opened Boyd's Wheels and later Hot Rods by Boyd, where his reputation exploded. He was unlike anyone else. While most builders focused on muscle and chrome, Boyd chased elegance, blending vintage flair with futuristic lines. He pioneered the use of billet aluminum wheels, which became a hallmark of high-end custom builds. His cars weren't just showpieces, they were rolling works of art. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Boyd had become a god among car enthusiasts. He won the prestigious America's Most Beautiful Roadster award multiple times, and his creations were sought after by celebrities, collectors, and museums alike. He wasn't just setting trends, he was inventing them. The Discovery Channel came calling in 2004, launching American Hot Rod, which catapulted Boyd into mainstream fame. Millions of viewers tuned in to watch the high-stakes drama of building million-dollar customs under impossible deadlines. Boyd became a household name. But what fans didn't know was that behind the iconic builds and booming business, cracks were beginning to form. Tensions in the shop were rising, and not everyone could keep up with Boyd's relentless drive. Still, in these early years, Coddington was at the top of the custom car world, a visionary who transformed the hot rod from backyard project to fine art. But like all empires built on obsession and control, it wouldn't last forever. The seeds of downfall were already being planted. As American Hot Rod gained popularity, the pressure inside Boyd Coddington's shop became unbearable. What viewers saw on screen was a high-octane environment, fueled by creativity and tight deadlines. But what they didn't see, what wasn't aired, was the emotional toll it was taking on everyone involved. Boyd, a perfectionist to the core, demanded excellence and speed. He ruled with intensity, pushing his crew to the brink. If a project wasn't perfect, it wasn't acceptable. That attitude produced incredible results, but also created a volatile, often toxic atmosphere. Turnover became rampant. Talented builders came and went, many leaving mid-project. One of the most notable exits was that of Chip Foose, Boyd's protege and designer of some of the company's most iconic cars. Foose left in the early 2000s after serious disputes with Boyd and his management team. The break wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Chip went on to launch his own company and the hit show Overhaulin', creating a rivalry that fans still debate today. Internally, things were spiraling. The tension between creativity and control was palpable. Behind the shine of award-winning builds were shop floor arguments, missed deadlines, and exhausted employees. Boyd's vision was clear, but the execution came at a cost. As the projects grew in size and scope, so did the pressure. And as the spotlight grew brighter, so did the cracks in the foundation of his empire. In February 2008, tragedy struck. Boyd Coddington passed away unexpectedly from complications following surgery. He was just 63. The news sent shockwaves through the automotive world. Tributes poured in from fans, celebrities, and former employees, many of whom, despite past tensions, still revered him as a legend. But while the world mourned, something odd was happening behind the scenes. Boyd's shop, once a bustling factory of creativity, innovation, and drama, fell quiet. Projects were left unfinished. Employees were uncertain of their futures. The production of American hot rod was abruptly halted. For a man whose name was synonymous with motion and momentum, his world stopped cold. Who owned the rights to his builds? Who would finish the work? And more hauntingly, what exactly was still left inside the garage? After Boyd's death, his once glorious garage faded into stillness. The walls that had echoed with metal grinders and roaring engines became eerily silent. For a time, the facility was sealed off. His business had no clear successor. Lawsuits over ownership, intellectual property, and unpaid debts piled up. Family members and former partners clashed over the remnants of his empire. Rumors began to spread. Some said Boyd had hidden blueprints for a revolutionary car design. Others claimed his office safe contained cash, IOUs from celebrities, and confidential letters never meant to be seen. There were whispers of massive debt, unfinished deals, and ghost builds that never made it to production. Over time, the property changed hands. But no one had truly gone through it until years later, when a collector gained access and started digging through the dust and darkness. What they uncovered wasn't just a time capsule. It was the buried truth of a man whose life burned so brightly, it left scars even in death. Years after Boyd Coddington's death, the once legendary garage stood like a tomb, quiet, sealed, and fading from public memory. But in 2014, everything changed. The property was quietly sold to a private collector and automotive historian who had long admired Boyd's work. What began as a purchase driven by nostalgia quickly turned into a shocking journey through the remnants of a vanished empire. As the new owners stepped inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. The lights flickered on for the first time in years, revealing a surreal scene. 7 half-finished hot rods, some little more than steel skeletons, sat frozen mid-build. Tools lay exactly where they had been left, as if the crew had simply walked away and never returned. On one bench, a design sketch rested under a cracked paperweight, an original Boyd concept that had never been shown to the public. But the real surprises were tucked away in the back offices and locked cabinets. Dozens of hand-drawn blueprints, some dating back to the 1980s, were found sealed in flat files, many of them representing ideas that were never built, never seen, and possibly never meant to be. Among them was a design for a hybrid hot rod, decades ahead of its time. Some experts later claimed it could have redefined Boyd's legacy had it been completed. Even more unsettling were the stacks of unpaid invoices, marked urgent in red pen, with vendor names still recognizable in the custom car world. Some had been filed away, others crumpled and tossed aside. In a locked drawer, they found personal letters, one in particular that hinted at a betrayal from within. It was addressed to someone only by initials and contained language that suggested Boyd had been preparing to confront someone close to him. There were also lists, dozens of them, meticulously written by Boyd himself. Priority builds, collectors to contact, do not show anyone. It became clear that Boyd was planning something big before his death. Perhaps a comeback, perhaps a reinvention, but he never had the chance to bring it to life. What had started as a real estate transaction had turned into the unearthing of a mystery. The garage wasn't just full of metal and machinery. It held secrets, regrets, and a final unspoken message from a man who died with too much left unfinished. As investigators combed through the artifacts left behind in Boyd Coddington's garage, one name surfaced again and again: Chip Foose. To fans, Chip and Boyd were once the ultimate duo, mentor and protege, a powerhouse team combining vision and execution. But behind the scenes, their relationship was far more complex, laced with jealousy, creative tension, and ultimately, betrayal. In the early 2000s, Chip Foose was Boyd's star designer. His sleek lines, innovative sketches, and modern twist on classic hot rods helped shape Boyd's most iconic builds. Together, they won awards, dazzled clients, and seemed unstoppable. But as Chip's reputation grew, so did the friction. Boyd, known for his control over every aspect of his company, reportedly began to feel threatened. Some former employees claimed Boyd would reject Chip's designs out of spite. Others say Chip was tired of being kept in the shadows while Boyd soaked up the credit. Their professional split was swift and dramatic. Chip walked away and launched his own company, Foose Design. Shortly after, Overhaulin premiered, with Chip as the star. It was everything American Hot Rod wasn't: emotional, collaborative, and free of Boyd's explosive temperament. While Boyd's shop was crumbling under stress, Chip's career soared. Inside Boyd's office, a locked file cabinet revealed letters, sketches, and notes that painted a picture of their feud that the public never saw. One letter, seemingly unsent, accused Chip of stealing ideas and warned of legal action. Another sketch, dated shortly before Chip's departure, was labeled "For My Eyes Only" and appeared to be a prototype of a vehicle eerily similar to one Chip later debuted under his own brand. But it didn't stop there. A spiral notebook marked Next Phase outlined Boyd's plans to reclaim dominance in the industry. At the center of that strategy was a new line of high-concept hot rods, ones that he believed would crush his former apprentice. The builds were never completed, but the intent was crystal clear. This rivalry wasn't just about cars, it was about identity, legacy, and control. And even in death, Boyd's feelings about Chip Foose remained preserved in ink, buried behind drawers and dust. The discovery added a darker layer to Boyd's story, one that challenged everything fans thought they knew. As the layers of Boyd Coddington's garage were peeled back, one of the most chilling discoveries wasn't a car at all. It was a stack of documents buried in a rusted file cabinet labeled "Confidential." Inside were folders filled with unpaid bills, past due notices, legal warnings, and tax records that painted a very different picture than the one fans saw on TV. Behind the gleam of polished chrome and glossy paint jobs was a financial crisis that had been growing quietly and dangerously for years. Boyd's hot rod empire looked bulletproof on the surface. He had a hit TV show, a top-tier client list, and an iconic brand. But under that sheen was a deeply mismanaged business. The documents revealed debts totaling in the millions. Dozens of vendors, machinists, and suppliers had submitted invoices, many dating back nearly a decade, that were never paid. Some had even taken legal action, but were silenced through private settlements. Even more alarming was a 2005 internal audit report found tucked inside an envelope marked "For Boyd Only." The report detailed mounting losses, missed payroll deadlines, and poor bookkeeping practices. It warned that without a complete financial overhaul, the company would collapse within 3 years. That prediction turned out to be hauntingly accurate. Bank statements uncovered in a locked desk drawer showed irregular withdrawals and overdrawn accounts, some tied to personal expenses. In one document, Boyd had applied for a loan using one of his unfinished cars as collateral, even though that car was already promised to a collector. There were also multiple cease and desist letters regarding alleged trademark issues and contract violations related to American hot rod merchandise. One file labeled "Do Not Open Without Legal Counsel" contained a draft lawsuit from a former business partner accusing Boyd of fraud and intellectual property theft. The case never made it to court, but the accusation alone cast a long shadow over Boyd's carefully crafted public image. To the outside world, Boyd was the king of custom cars, a visionary and pioneer. But inside those walls, the truth was harder to stomach. A man whose ambition outpaced his resources, whose empire was built on mounting debt, and whose obsession with perfection may have blinded him to the chaos behind the scenes. The financial records were a sobering reminder that even legends can fall, and that behind every bright showroom is a back office full of secrets. Among the rusted tools and forgotten frames, the most haunting discovery wasn't a car. It was a small, leather-bound journal tucked away in Boyd Coddington's personal desk. Covered in fingerprints, dust, and age, it was filled with page after page of cramped handwriting, Boyd's private reflections during the final years of his life. And what those pages revealed was far more personal and tragic than anyone expected. The journal wasn't a daily diary. It was a collection of thoughts, plans, regrets, and fears. Boyd wrote openly about his struggle to keep his empire afloat. He spoke of sleepless nights, staff he no longer trusted, and customers who were growing impatient. One entry read, "Everyone sees the cars. No one sees the pressure. I can't keep doing this much longer." In another, he referred to unfinished business and hinted at a betrayal so personal he couldn't bring himself to name names. Boyd's son, Chris Coddington, stepped forward in an attempt to carry the torch. He launched a new iteration of the brand, Boyd Coddington Wheels, focused on preserving the design legacy while modernizing the product line. Though the move was met with support from loyal fans, it was clear the spark that had once ignited the industry was difficult to recreate. Without Boyd's obsessive drive and larger-than-life personality, the brand struggled to regain its former glory. Orders slowed. Recognition waned. Collectors, however, began to see Boyd's original creations in a new light. Cars that had once been treated as flashy trophies were now considered relics of a golden era. Prices at auction began to climb. Unfinished builds pulled from the garage were completed by loyal former employees or restoration specialists, often selling for hundreds of thousands. One partially completed roadster from the shop floor fetched over $300,000, untouched since the day Boyd died. These vehicles weren't just cars anymore. They were symbols, frozen moments in a man's journey, each one telling a story of ambition, chaos, and artistry. For some collectors, acquiring a Coddington original became a quest to preserve automotive history. For others, it was about rescuing a vision that never got to see the road. But for all the reverence that returned to Boyd's legacy, there was also a quiet recognition of what could have been. His plans for a final collection, a series of designs meant to redefine the custom scene, were never built. The pieces were there, sketches, parts, concepts, but the hands that had the power to bring them to life were gone. In the end, Boyd's empire didn't rise again in full, but fragments of it, scattered like shrapnel through the car world, continued to influence a new generation of builders. And for every rusted chassis and forgotten tool that came out of that dark garage, something else came to life. A renewed appreciation for the complicated man behind the myth. Boyd Coddington's story didn't end with his death. It echoed, like the idle rumble of a half-built hot rod in a dark garage, waiting to be finished. What began as a tale of innovation and relentless ambition became something far more human, more fragile. The discoveries inside his garage, unfinished builds, secret plans, financial wreckage, and handwritten regrets, offered the world a final, unfiltered glimpse at a man whose public image was only half the story. To millions of fans, Boyd was the face of custom cars. Bold, brash, brilliant. He could take a rusted-out shell and turn it into a masterpiece, reshaping the American hot rod scene forever. His influence birthed a new wave of builders, designers, and shows, redefining how the world saw car culture. But behind the confidence and celebrity was a man drowning in pressure, chasing perfection at the expense of stability, relationships, and ultimately, peace. The journal, the letters, the abandoned builds, they tell the story of a man who knew the walls were closing in. He tried to hold it all together, to finish what he started, to reclaim what was slipping away. But in the end, the empire he built with his bare hands outgrew even him. The final image is a haunting one, a dust-covered garage, silent and still, with half a dozen cars frozen in time. Tarps draped like shrouds, tools laid to rest, and tucked in the corner, Boyd's last blueprint, a vision that would never see pavement. For those who enter that space, it's like walking into a monument, not just to Boyd's success, but to his struggle. Yet even in its collapse, Boyd's empire left behind something powerful, a legacy etched into metal, rubber, and memory. His designs continue to inspire, his mistakes continue to teach, and his story continues to challenge the myth of success in the spotlight. What they found in Boyd Coddington's garage wasn't just shocking. It was tragic, beautiful, and profoundly human. In the end, he wasn't just a builder of hot rods. He was a builder of dreams. Some realized, others forever unfinished.